Though I know it's the last session, but we have one speaker who has a number of firsts in his name. His name is K.S. Abhiraj, and I'd just like to say a few points about him. I mean, apart from his professional resume, what he carries with himself. The first Indian to represent Indian hacker space. The first Indian to expose some of the vulnerabilities with Legat. And also one of the first Indians to draft one of the initial Indian framework for cloud security, accredited by TRAI. In addition, he was one of the 23 consultants from India to get involved with the TRAI for research and discussion on regulatory framework on cloud for Indian industry. Can I request you all to welcome him with a big, since it's the last session, and I hope you have some energy left. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Is it working? Yeah, perfectly fine. Thank you, everyone. So I can't see much of audience in here, but till now I think it's been 2 days, maximum 1.5 days, and you might have got A to Z of cloud adoption to cloud migration to the security aspects of cloud. So I know you might have got bored till now, but I would like to start off, this session by asking you. See, my nature of industry is into security, cloud security basically. But I would like you guys to start up with what kind of issues or concerns are you having when you speak of cloud. With respect to that, I would start or initiate with the presentation. So I'm opening it with you guys. Anyone or everyone? Concerns in cloud, you are from 2 days, you are hearing consistently about cloud issues, the earlier question on SLA and other stuff into cloud migration, jumping off to cloud, into cloud. So what are the concerns? You can just ask me the concerns. Based on that, I would start up the session and would try to make it as interactive as possible. So yeah, please. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
One kind of workload may
Yeah.
jeopardize the performance of other applications running on the same box,
Yeah.
shared on the same tenant system. So that is one concern that comes up most frequently, and that results in more people trying to isolate and having a single system and a single environment kind of, or private environment where they can put all kind of similar workloads or their own workloads without sharing with other and third-party system.
Yeah.
So that is one concern that comes around.
So what's the kind of concern in that?
Concern
the
is
requirement of client.
yeah. The concern is if I as a customer put my workload on a multi-tenant system,
Yeah.
and if because there's no control of what other tenants are doing, a faulty tenant or a malicious tenant can take down my workload, which is also in the same box.
Yeah, right. So addressing your concern, it directly signifies or totally towards the isolation issue in context to virtual machine, right? So keeping in mind the virtual machine stack, what you should get to know at first is how the stack is. There are 3 kind of structures basically. It would start with ethical structure, in which you see for metadata, applications and other stuff, and then comes the mid-ref structure, which acts as glue and guts between the above layer and the below layer. The last layer is the stack structure, which is for infrastructure, basically, which comes into cloud, the compute, storage, and networking. So when we map your concern, it would actually go to the stack structure, which would just focus and solely focus on the infrastructure part, the virtual machine part. So in here, the issue is more like, in context to workload. Your issue is there are multiple workload, multiple tenant. How would you adhere? How would you justify yourself whether your data is being seen by someone else or not? So there are many considerations which people do take while configuring varied forms of virtual machines. And at the end, it's not on the consumer side to you will ask your provider what kind of facilities they are having for securing these aspects which you specified. They would say we have normal patches done to all the isolation issues, because I would show you some attack vectors which have been showcased over Black Hat and other kind of organizations, consortiums who are working towards breaking up stuff in visualization, but you would just find it was in 2008, 2009, Jonna Rutskova, she was one of those who initiated VM escapes. From there it started, yeah, we have visualization issues coming over, so isolation is a very big issue. Right? So that was the sole case, and that was tested after having proper root rights in the hypervisor. Right? So you had the source code of VMware, cloud bursts in, then you try to accomplish that. But in today's date, the concern is not of the VM. And again, seeing from the provider side, provider can't see your workload at first. That's again, he doesn't care what kind of workload you are providing or what's your requirement. What he sees is he has this kind of platform or the kind of infrastructure which he provides. Now the issue is now you have to customize or refurbish your application or your infrastructure depending on the vendor on which you are going to jump off, not the other way around. That's how it should be, right? So I think that would address your solution. Anything else? Or would like to continue? Yeah, please. No, please, I was just telling her to.
So one of the other concerns is because of the easy availability of, let's say, if you look at Amazon Public Cloud, right?
Yeah.
Amazon Web Services. There's a concept called the elastic IP. Basically, you get set of IP addresses, and if you're not using those, you can basically relinquish it. You can remove it off, and it goes into a free pool. So some of the issues that we have is with regards to, let's say, if you have mapped an IP to a, let's say, a domain, and later you relinquish that IP later on because you don't need to use it, but mapping is already there inside the application layer, maybe in the host file or somewhere. So that IP can be used by some other application provider now. For example, they have two Oracle instances, and one Oracle is being used for send one IP, and tomorrow you relinquish your IP and it goes to someone else, and it points to a different Oracle instance, for example.
Yeah, right. You are very right on this context. Let me take your point in technical terms now. So all the application layer metadata has been mapped to SAN because SAN is used definitely by the cloud providers, right? And so SAN has a component called logical unit number, LUN. So every time an instance gets initiated, it provides a unique LUN to a peculiar stack of storage which gets aligned up with the application. So what you are seeing is, so for example, there are two consumers, consumer A, consumer B. Consumer A initiated a workload and the workload was given logical unit number 1. So for example, if some other competitor grabs on the logical unit number 1 and gets into access of logical unit number 1, then you would be getting access to that total workload of 1, right? This is your basic concern in technical terms. Yeah, so basically this is still an issue, but how you would resolve this issue? It's like you can't delegate everything to the provider. Right? You have to map your application because application is in your hands till you go for SaaS. So when you create or construct the applications on your part, you should see for the integration between varied elements underlying in the infrastructure. Definitely they would not say what kind of vendor they are on with and other miniature stuff, but you should ask them the concepts which you use. So you can put up that kind of abstraction and integration mechanisms to your application. So this should be resolved by your application, and it's your responsibility to see for how it's been graphed in such a manner that it would always, see, after every time you initiate a workload or be it anything, initiate anything from SaaS or PaaS, it would create or jump off to database, which would be connected to a logical number in SAN. So you should always see whether these functionalities which they provide or keep in abstract terms are clear consent on your side. Right? So you should confirm from your end. It's not the issue of the provider. It would come to your end because they would at the end delegate this stuff to you. So now it's on you to how to refurbish your applications depending on the vendor and their stack. Right?
Thank you.
And keeping up this concern, this month only in the Information Week I have written an article. So you can just view that. In that I have mentioned the recommendations technically, comparatively, on because openly only Zen service available where we can work. Not speaking of the platform, just speaking of the infrastructure service. So if you work, so you're a developer, right? So being a developer, you can definitely see the workload and every instance of imaging how it's done in the infrastructure layer if you work with Open Zen server. Right? So in there, you can get to know how to resolve these issues programmatically. And see, there is a lot of disconnect between the application guys and the infrastructure security guys. These guys never talk to each other in a firm. Right? So there's a basic disconnect at the abstract layer, so you can jump off downstairs. So you should see it from your perspective. Right? Would that solve a bit? always welcome. And so other upcoming concerns, if any. See, there are a lot of concerns coming over cloud. Every of you, I think most of you, people are from Infosys in here, sitting in here, and Capgemini and other guys sitting over here. You can just get to know, you are just facing clients directly. What are the issues coming up towards you? You just blab it off. Anyone? No. Okay. So starting off a presentation. Yeah, thank you. So, so let me start off with this thing. 10 years back, CMU provided a study funded by DARPA. And the objective of this study was they were providing some form of shifts or innovation upcoming into the cloud-based industry. So what their focus and shift were it would resemble the kind of issues or kind of things which we should adhere in today's date. Let's see for the shifts which they recommended 10 years back when we didn't have the buzzword called cloud. So it was moving off to centralized to global, being in terms of communication or interaction, bounded to unbounded in every manner, insular to networked. As we can see in today's date, everything is connected towards in cloud, and you have issues in cloud based on location and geographic location, predictable to asynchronous in terms of timelining and baseline of how applications get created, single responsibility to shared responsibility, as we have seen in the application layer, how things work on, as so many already presentations have showcased this case, and overhead to essential in terms of how IT activates in today's date, and security to survivability. Now, this is one of the major concerns in today. People speak of security, someone is getting hacked, someone is trying to hack. We speak of 0 days hackability, but we never speak of creating our system so resilient that it would resolve all the issues, or mainly major issues, if we keep the vendor or the provider off this side. So this is one of the major shifts which is to be taken or is to be seen. So I'll be presenting a note on survivability, which is necessary in today's date. And static dynamic, as we can see, as here, his questions clears that how it's been dynamic in nature. You have heard a lot of stuff, and automated I don't need to describe this stuff. So basically now we have seen what has really happened is we have consolidated our servers to, logical pools, storage moved from hard to, fabrics and controllers, basic controllers, which can be programmatically work upon. So the actual shifts we can just see for it, transitioning from infrastructure to composable service layers. Now, as I defined the kind of stack, we speak in form of stack. Earlier there was a total glue and guts between the application and the infrastructure. Both used to be at a go in here like this. But now when we speak of cloud, it has many varied dependencies, and each element of cloud, though the cloud is reliable, but each elements which create cloud are not that reliable. So therefore we have to see and work depending upon or segregating each of the functions or each of the facets of cloud as provided by Cloud Security Alliance, because Cloud Security Alliance is one of the 14 to 15 consortiums in the world who have created a peculiar stack of how you can define cloud, be it in any form of as a service stuff. So, and also now we are normally seeing, after Cloud Foundry, OpenStack, and all these things are coming over. Now we are jumping off to a API model where you can just control the cloud just programmatically. Now tell me, from last 20 years, from the sector of application security, at least 5 top 10 security issues coming over normal applications. They are still the same from last 20 years. And now we are jumping again to a platform where everything is to be worked upon by application. So the application vulnerabilities will be there, and for example, stuffs like buffer overflow and DOS. People speaking of DOS. Yeah, come on, tell me this thing. In cloud is meant to scale automatically. So how would DOS affect you? Okay, if you're expecting your bill to be 100, it would come to $200 per month or per day. But how you can call it denial of service? Do you think in cloud, if you have a service, you have tell it to auto scale magically, which you can't see how it's been scaled? And after some time, someone is pushing, peculiar messages, being in queue or controllers, application issue, or the infrastructure issue, taking a botnet and putting up towards a target. How can it affect cloud? Right? So that's one of the major concerns which you should see. You should call it acceptance of service attack. It's more like now what's happening is it's a service attack. Now it's like you have an application, it is going, it is collecting information at the back end. You're not able to see the scripts which is pushing up your application to use more of the resources than you should. So it's acceptance of service attack, not denial of service attack. You're accepting the risk based on your application. And so for example, I would just, in the forthcoming slide, there is a slide on peculiar attacks which are to be seen in cloud, but just think, by normal stuff, it's a common sense thing. If I have a computer in a cloud, and if I put a botnet, a click for botnet, but just click it, and you know that your resources are being occupied. If it is low and slow, that it's driving your background utilization. So at the end of the year, when you're expecting your bill to be 400 and you get $40,000 bill, how do you react to it? That's a major issue coming in here, and we have this issue coming over. So I have a POC of this thing, but I don't think we have much of technical guys in here. So it's better to move forward into an operational layer. And this talk should be more focused on operationally and architecturally how things should be done in cloud, how you should see to work upon with your experiences over cloud. So moving forward, yeah, as I told you, we are speaking of security, and come on, who is secure? Even your wallet in your pocket is not secure. Even in here, sitting in between those delegates who are CIO, CEO, I lost my laptop here, come on. So come on, so nothing is secure in here. So things is like survivability, how you can survive in this race, right? So moving on towards this is, depending on your network ability, the presence of attacks or future accidents which come over to your network is to be seen, because at the end, your network is this thing which would give you that kind of resilience to survive, even if your service level applications are getting degraded. So you should see or put choke points or it should be a part of your application, not the SDLC procedure. Come on, it should not be the part of SDLC. It should be part of an operational character where you should see how and what kind of impact would happen to your application and the underlying layers if it gets failed over in cloud. So jumping over to security hamster sine wave. Now what I mean by this, this graph showcases how people put off or how people invest in applications or cloud. So let's take a point, any point. Let's start from host centricity controls. You start up with putting up an agent for an application. You put an agent, you put then 27 agent for different, it acts as patches. One agent for putting up a patch, and then multiple agents because 0 days come every day comparatively, and then a mega agent which will see all the application issues coming over the host. Then you would see here, come on, this your mega agent is taking 14 gigahertz of memory. So now how to resolve this thing? So you say, no, it's not, no, we should not work on with host, we jump on to application centricity. We jump on with cloud. Cloud-based application, we follow SDLC procedures, we refurbish our applications. People refurbish all of the applications to make their business environment, their objective align with the vendor's objective. Okay, they expect that it would scale very well and it would be very much efficient, good for them. But again, then they see if there's an application and there's a disconnect between all the procedures of all the three layers, and as the application can't be able to act as glue and guts, then an issue. So you jump off, you jump to information centricity. You see, where is information? Let me protect that. And where you see the information is with everyone, so users are the key thing. You should protect and you should filter users, but at the end, you want to you want to stop the monkeys pushing up the wrong button. But come on, every user would give you a password just for a chocolate bar. Come on. So then you say, okay, now let's our network feeds and speeds are awesome, so let's jump to network centricity, centricity model. And when you see for this thing, you see where should I put my choke points? Where I can firewall. I should encrypt all. I should encrypt in transit. Come on, people are giving these kind of solutions. So So suppose if you encrypt all your channel, for example, let's take I have encrypted all my channels through this stack. Now if I want to monitor through a third-party SIEM, be it ArcSight or be it any open one, so now won't they affect the encryption in transit when you want to see the data inside it? So in our terms, I would call it, I am putting an MITM, man in the middle attack. Anyone can grab the content or the flow of that SIEM and grab into the, get into the workflow of the provider. So that's a very big issue coming over on how would you think, how would you refurbish your operations when you integrate various elements to a certain aspect of stack. So that's a consideration which you should see for when you are working with, or you're working operationally, or when you're working with clients or vendors and they are telling their abstract technologies in like we have XML, security, gateway, or these kind of things which didn't work well with SOA early times. So the things are repeating again. So for suppose if I, in this sine wave, if I add a cosine in here, and now let me see, let the cosine represent a kind of new disruptive innovation called virtualization or cloud computing, then how would I see for things? Now, we are looking, or what we want is, we have a provider in here, and our issue is, what we are able to say is, we have an application which we have to port to the provider, and is that transparent? No, it's not transparent. So at the end, what you are focusing is, your focus is the host-based centricity. You are focusing just on your VM and all, but what you are able to see, you are in there. So how to resolve these kind of issues which are coming over? That's one of the major concerns on how people should tend their focus on comparatively. So coming on towards some of the attacks which have been seen and which will be seen in coming months. So because I have a POC and I'm going to publish it in Black Hat, and I'm expecting I would be able to jump over that. So you would find a new sect of attacks coming over. But prior to that, what of things we have seen? We have seen VM escapes, as I told this gentleman. Coming over by John Ritzcover by 2009. So initial 10 years we are totally happy with visualization. But when she showed, through some basic programmatic issue, she was able to get into the device driver, which was embedded in the kernel while initiating the operating system. So there's a basic funda behind when you start off an operating system. Your kernel drivers are never aligned up with the base OS, and you never put an embedded device driver to the kernel. Come on. So no, there's a basic issue which Linus had focused earlier while creating Linux. So these are the issues which are coming still now, and that that get a hype of VM escapes, biased rootkits. So suppose if you get into the base hypervisor where you can get into where you can change the basic funda of hypervisor. So these exploits are sure to be seen. Come on. And again, when we speak of community VMs, community VMs, that's a very great thing. Some researchers from SensePost, what they did was they created some Forge virtual application. They made it, very well designed for each facet of guys, like for software developers, some tools in a particular OS, for penetration testers or intruders, who try to use an application to get into an infrastructure, or bit anyway, a new operating system for them. So what they did was they made it clear, they made it very well, and they made it in such a manner that it was listed in the Amazon's top 10, OS which has been downloaded every day. And within an hour, what they found was more than 10,000 of those host machines were downloaded and run in their own virtual instances. So come on, if you are acting so dumb in an infrastructure, how would you live? Now, I'm not speaking of survivability in here. Come on. So this is one of the major concerns which you should see. Though I agree with you on this context that when you see an OS and when you see that 1,000 people or more than 5,000 people are jumping or deploying those agents directly without jumping off or seeing towards the, because you can't check, you can't reverse engineer report it directly. But these are some of the considerations which providers should see while jumping off to cloud. And this was, and some researchers also showcased some of the projects in which, though this has been not much publicized outside, in Amazon, what they were able to see was they requested multiple resources together. Right, and so after those resources, what they observed was just the combination of two things: how the resources are getting allocated, and the combination of IP addresses. Just observing for more than 1 million, kind of grabbing this data what they were able to showcase, I'm saying showcase, they were able to showcase that the next request which you would be putting off, in which physical server it would lie. So come on, well, see, you are getting to know in which physical server you are going to get the data. So now, when we speak of, in security terms, APT, Advanced Persistent Threat, the first thing that comes is targeted. These attacks are targeted. So we are able to more precisely see our targets directly. So now I don't need to see for virtual appliances coming, jumping over. When I can directly touch the base, I can shake the base. So these are some of the issues which come over, and these considerations, you can't just tell to vendor directly, see, these are the considerations, I need solution for these things. They would kick you off. They would say, yeah, come on, well, you can't directly tell them or showcase till you have some proof of concept for yourself, right? So this just signifies that all the concerns, these concerns has to be rectified through your applications and through your platforms. So the impact on the infrastructure should not affect the above base, right? So though if I speak of BGP protocol and the protocols lying in the abstract layer where people don't touch, or people having more than 20 years of experience only touches the protocols to play with, even those protocols are having vulnerabilities in them. Now the other issue is the impact is critical, but the way to exploit that is, it's very, very, kind of difficult in some manner. But how? Matlab, see, if BGP protocols get affected, so all your routing from one database to another database would get affected, being on different area or bit anyway. So how would you survive? How would your application survive? That should be your consideration at first. Not delegating, I have written in SLA. See, for example, that was your question earlier when you mentioned the attacks or the patches from the vendor, if that lacks some time, and if you get hacked. First thing, if you would get hacked, you would never get to know you got hacked till it gets publicized. Second thing, it comes into SLA, right? People write in SLA, ki, yeah, we have clearly segregated the accountabilities and responsibilities between what you should do and what you should not, what all things would be responsible from the vendor side, what all things would be taking responsibility from the client side. But these kind of attacks which they come over, again, they fight over it. For example, let me give you a practical example. It was around 2009, 2010, when a company called Bitbucket had a DDoS attack on the infrastructure. So they asked, I'm not saying the vendor's name who provided the baseline for this infrastructure, but when the client asked them, ki, I'm getting affected by the service, I'm not able to work. So what now? For 18 hours, or for approximately 18 hours, they were not able to work on their baseline systems. And so after some analysis, the vendor replied, or it was affected by DDoS, and it was your responsibility to see for this thing. And it was a very big issue, very big issue. It was very publicized, but again, the issue was in here, the SLA. It was not specified the DOS attacks would be taken care of by vendor or by the client who is jumping off to the vendor. So what client expects, DOS, it's directly proportional to the infrastructure. So this should be handled by the provider. Make it clear. Okay, you have made it clear. Now the kind of attacks which are coming, which people call DOS attacks, I call it acceptance of service attacks in the application. When they hurt, it's your responsibility. So it's at the end, you should take it as your responsibility to see for the concerns impeding the momentum of security. Right? Then information exfiltration, as I told you, I have specified, again, see now with enormous source and enormous connectivity, now the potential is not in context to save your data. It's more like to just see what misconfiguration or the kind of configuration you do at your end. For example, Dropbox accidentally, I've written the word accidentally, turned off password authentication for its 25 million users for 4 hours. Just assume it. Impact catastrophic. So these are the issues which affect at first, and you are speaking of SLAs, the things which come in abstract manner. Right? So you should see your concerns coming onward to this. And as I have described the cloud bot and acceptance service attacks, I'll just move forward. So, and again, in today's date, again, people, for some of the attacks showcased in Black Hat, there are just 3 to 4 attacks showcased in Black Hat, signifying the attacks coming over or in around hypervisors also. But people are taking it from heart. They are asking, what about the hypervisor issue? what the issues coming up with hypervisor. First thing, if you're getting your own hypervisor, be it very cool, see for all the configuration issues from your side. Second thing, forget about the hypervisor now. Now, what you should focus on is the layer above the infrastructure, above the structure. That's where you put your metadata, how you connect your metadata to the other databases or the other underlying layers which you had created, and the protocols definitely, because protocols has a very major issue. Sometimes the performance issues are aligned with the protocols which have been used, and the kind of protocols which get aligned up with the vendor-based, architecture or paradigm. So as I have spoken, there's a basic, there's a big issue of application architecture which impacts the momentum of adoption. So if I take a small example, this is from AWS and how they work on the basic message queue work. So what traditionally has been done is, normally if I want to request or do anything over cloud, a controller would be created which would signify or push of another method which would be embedded in the controller, which would go to controller B and tied to controller C. Now what traditionally, and still what people do is firewalls. We have application-based firewalls. As I told you, XML security gateways, which would see for the application issues coming over, and they would filter it. So I'm happy. I have put all the devices. Now the paradigm looks good. But how now the thing should be is, people should jump from queue to controller. They should create more queues. Now the issue is, when a VM is being initiated from the root, it creates multiple threads. You should see for security of those threads, because those threads are the one which lead to the VM issues of isolation. Those threads are the one which leads to issue of acceptance of service attack. Those threads are the one which leads to the paradigm issues or the issues coming up with the architecture. So the major concern or recommendation from my side would be to see the basic architecture accept. And now don't see for coupling or decoupling of your applications in a tight manner. It should totally be decoupled in such a manner, lose it out. Make it so flexible that if you want to see the security of a queue, you can. If I ask you how can I certify that my queue, a peculiar queue which asks for more resource utilization after it gets saturated. So see for security of those, because that's the peak moment when other guys can jump in over by seeing the resource IDs, where's the next resource would be jumping onto the vendor SOC or somewhere else. So again, I'm not saying the solutions are flawed, but the questions have changed. The kind of questions which you still ask in today's date doesn't have that impact on your infrastructure till you get to hear, okay, it's hacked. So now what you should focus is, this is an example of infrastructure as a service layer where I have provided above the orange line. Everything is you. Everything should be secure by you. Or each and every application, suppose if you are working in application layer, the initial first part would be yours. So when you create that, you should take in consideration all the part which is underlying. So that's one of the major concerns which you should see, and the focus, your focus is a very big thing. Focus should be on building survivable system. If you would say, I'm not getting paid for creating free float designs, designed for failure comparatively. So there's a kind of disconnect. You don't get paid for creating false paradigms, but if you do not create such kind of paradigms, how would you know that your application is worth it, can handle the kind of issues coming off towards the infrastructure? And building secure apps. Okay, from last 10 years, whenever I'm in the industry, I hear of these things. We are following, we have these certified methodologies, these all things, we follow all the SDLC procedures coming off to applications. But then also, if those these things, then why we are seeing these many issues coming over? So think about it. It's about how to reiterate your thought process, aligning up with how things actually work, not thinking in abstract terms. Because let me tell you transparently, from last 2 days, I'm just hearing the governance issues which are people aligning up with security in cloud. These are more, okay, how do you define security as something which is having a catastrophic impact or which is having a low impact? So sometimes, you should see beyond what your lies. Then architecturing for cloud, what is the base process on how you can architecture for cloud? Design for failure, as I told you. Decoupling, more of decoupling, where you can see each and every process aligned in front of you, not a kind of batch process where you are just seeing what things are running around you. Elasticity and security is one of the major constraints. Break constraints. You know what the basic constraints of your applications. You know that your applications should survive on these things issue. So how to break constraints, and think parallel. Parallel-based algorithms should be more preferred when working up with distributed architecture. Now that's a kind of disconnect, but that's how it works in cloud. So sounds easy, but what the basic focus is, we have to create more observable system because we can't depend on the provider. Now that's a clear-cut issue that why you can't depend on the provider, because provider does not know clearly how and what is your workload. And the second issue is they don't care about it. They just care what's your objective, and is their paradigm allows for your objective to be furnished, and they want your applications you should rewrite for jumping onto the infrastructure. Again, a kind of disconnect, but that's how you should see it. So how we should see for the securing the centers of data, not the data centers. So how you should see is see for all the issues which I told you. See, align it up with the kind of considerations which you should take and which you could take with normal common sense. No need of being a technology guru or kind of a person who should know the in and out of cloud, A to Z of everything, how things work. Think it cool, think it as simple as possible. Segregate everything what you're able to see. If you're able to segregate stuff, it's more easy to you when you speak of security. As much as you abstract, you would make it more complex. Just that's about it. And if you have some more questions aligning up with this thing, you can just push off. Thank you. Right.
Questions? Okay, if we have none, then I would request Mr. Shrikant RP to please hand him a token of our appreciation. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abhiraj. With that, we come to the end of Cloud Connect 2012. I hope you have enjoyed attending the sessions just as much as we have enjoyed putting it for you. Thank you all.